Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to the ranking member. I think these have been extraordinarily helpful, especially for some of the newer members who haven't been in the trenches for years and years, kind of looking at housing struggles, and certainly affordability is one of the biggest challenges we have as we look forward. Arguably, one of the biggest challenges we have today in North Dakota is housing. We have a huge economic boom in which you can all say, aren't you lucky? But the person who's working at the grocery store making $15 an hour who cannot afford to live and is living in their car don't feel so lucky. Mm-hmm. And so one of the questions that I have is how we define affordability. And a lot of this is based on national standards, on taking a look at what housing costs are. When you tell people in Dickinson, North Dakota, $500,000 house doesn't buy you much, you might all look at me like I am crazy, but it is the truth. And so my question is, do you think there is enough flexibility in this effort to accommodate for regional variances and for kind of boom times, which really have a huge affordability impact on those who are getting opening up their mailbox and getting a $1,000 check every week from the oil industry? I'd ask anyone on the panel to respond.
Sure. So I'll start. I would say one of the strengths, not just of the trust fund or the capital magnet fund, but of the way affordable housing is in general delivered, is that it's tied to area median income, which is imperfect but pretty good at addressing some of the challenges you identify. That if there is a local boom in income, which then pushes up rents and pushes up housing costs, both of those can be captured. There's sometimes a lag, right, because government data take a while to work through the machine. But the way different programs are structured, so for instance, HUD Section 8 program is tied to the fair market rent, which is a survey right. everywhere. Imperfect, but it gets to some of that variation.
If I can just interrupt you there, sure. Section 8 has become irrelevant in western North Dakota. Those vouchers have been moved east because they don't accommodate the increased housing costs. And so and this is not, now we're in the third, fourth year of this, and they haven't caught up. And so this is, not to belabor mm-hmm. this point, but this is something that I want to kind of lay down the marker on, that we need to have more flexibility for other parts of the country. Dr. Crowley, I really appreciate your response on Native American housing. And I want to ask this question, and I know that it's not necessarily directly related to this bill itself, but the income tax credit program, which is, a program that states have the ability of allocating those resources. Have you seen those income tax credit programs work effectively in Indian country throughout the United States?
You mean the low-income housing tax credit program? My understanding is that it's not, that it hasn't reached Indian country very well. And in fact, part of the problem is that the people who live in Indian country are too poor to be able to afford the minimum rents that are required in tax credit properties. Tax credits do not, the rent is set at a flat amount, and they are not required to be targeted to the very poorest people. So unless you have other subsidies, tax credits aren't very useful in Indian country.
So this very significant program across the country is not particularly responsive. The other thing I would tell you is that you need someone who wants to use those credits, who's willing to come to Indian country
that's
and
right.
do the development, and that's also been a problem. Finally, and following up on Senator Warner's line of questioning, we have tried to find some kind of actual economic verification of the impact of the affordable housing goals, actually quantified. Can I just, you don't need to respond to this now, but can I ask that to the extent that you have actual data, hard data on the impact as we've discussed here, that you could provide it certainly to my office and maybe any other member who would be interested in seeing that, because we're having this discussion about the affordable housing goals, and I think it's really important that we operate on not emotion but on fact. And so mm-hmm. I'd appreciate if you'd submit that information for the record and provide it to my office. Thank you.